The year was 2847, and humanity had been part of the Galactic Concord for 300 years. The Concord was a massive alliance of over 4,000 species from across the galaxy. It had rules, committees, councils, and enough bureaucracy to make any government on Earth look simple by comparison. Humans were considered a junior species. They were new to the galactic stage. They had only 12 colony worlds and a modest fleet of ships. The older species saw them as hard-working and surprisingly tough, but not important, not powerful, not a threat to anyone. This was about to change. The trouble started with the Vethrani hegemony. The Vethrani were not part of the Concord. They were a predatory empire that lived outside its borders. They had hundreds of worlds and a massive military. They also had a taste for cruelty that made other species nervous. The Vethrani began raiding human colonies on the frontier. At first, it was small attacks. A transport ship here, a mining outpost there. But soon, the raids grew larger. The Vethrani were capturing humans and selling them as slaves on the black market. To them, humans were just another commodity, easy to catch, easy to sell, and nobody powerful enough to stop them. Admiral Elena Vasquez was the commander of Earth's Frontier Defense Forces. She was 53 years old, with gray hair cut short, and eyes that had seen too much death. When the first reports came in, she did what any good officer would do. She followed the rules. Earth's representatives went before the Galactic Concord Council. They presented evidence of the attacks. They showed images of burned colonies and lists of the missing. They asked for help. They asked for the Concord's powerful fleets to intervene and stop the Vethrani. The council listened. They expressed concern. They formed a committee to study the matter. Months passed. The raids continued. More humans disappeared into Vethrani slave markets. Admiral Vasquez returned to the council. She brought new evidence, new lists of the dead, new footage of atrocities. She asked again for help. She begged. The council formed another committee. They sent a diplomatic note to the Vethrani expressing grave concern. The Vethrani laughed and raided another colony. 18 months went by like this. Humanity asked for justice. The council debated. The Vethrani kept killing and capturing humans. It seemed like nothing would ever change. Then came New Carthage. New Carthage was a colony of 400,000 people. It had farms, factories, schools, and hospitals. It had families who had built their lives there over 3 generations. It had children. The Vethrani came with a fleet of 200 ships. They did not come to raid this time. They came to make a statement. They bombarded the colony from orbit until the surface turned to glass. 400,000 people died in less than an hour. The attack was broadcast live across human networks. People on Earth, on Mars, on every human world watched as New Carthage burned. They saw the children's hospital collapse. They heard the final transmissions from people saying goodbye to their families. And something in humanity broke. Admiral Vasquez stood before the Galactic Concord Council one last time. The chamber was vast, filled with representatives from hundreds of species. Some had tentacles, some had wings, some existed as patterns of light. All of them watched the human admiral with varying degrees of interest and boredom. Vasquez spoke quietly. Her voice was calm, too calm. "We have been members of this Concord for 300 years, she said. "We have followed your rules. We have respected your procedures. We have asked for justice through proper channels." She paused and looked around the chamber. "For 18 months, we have begged for your help. We have shown you evidence of murder, slavery, and genocide. We have watched your committees meet and your diplomats send notes. And while you debated procedure, our people died." She held up a small device. It showed a photograph of a young girl, perhaps 7 years old, with dark hair and a bright smile. This is Maria Santos. She was in the children's hospital on New Carthage. She wanted to be a pilot when she grew up. She will never grow up. She is Ash now. The chamber was silent. We asked for help, Vasquez said. We followed your rules, and our children are Ash. She closed her datapad and placed it on the podium. Fine, I'll handle it. Then she turned and walked out of the chamber. She did not look back. The representatives watched her go. Some seemed relieved that the emotional human had finally stopped talking. A few of the older species, the ones who had been around for millions of years and had seen civilizations rise and fall, felt something different. The Caliph ambassador was one of them. His species had existed for 12 million years. They had watched countless younger species grow, fight, and sometimes destroy themselves. He had thought he understood humans. He had thought they were just another ambitious young species, full of energy, but ultimately predictable. Now, watching the human admiral walk away, he felt something he had not felt in a very long time. Fear. He turned to his aide. Get me a direct line to our intelligence services. I want to know what the humans are planning. Sir, they are a junior species. What could they possibly... Do it now. Within an hour, every major intelligence service in the galaxy had flagged the same thing. Human military channels had gone dark. Complete communications blackout. Their ships were moving, but no one could tell where. The Concorde's Secretary General called an emergency meeting. Representatives scrambled for information. No one had any. In the great strategic command centers of a dozen major powers, analysts stared at their screens and tried to understand what was happening. They ran simulations. They reviewed everything they knew about human capabilities. And slowly, a terrible possibility began to form in their minds. What if they had underestimated humanity? What if the junior species with 12 worlds and a modest fleet had been hiding something? What if the humans had been preparing for exactly this moment? The galaxy was about to find out. On Earth, in a bunker deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, Admiral Vasquez sat at the head of a long table, surrounded by the highest-ranking military officers in human history. On screens around them, data flowed from every human world, every ship, every secret facility. Operation Prometheus is now active, she said. All units are to proceed to designated positions. Complete communications blackout is in effect. She looked at the faces around her, men and women who had trained their entire lives for a day they hoped would never come. They ignored our pleas, she said. They watched our children burn. Now we will show them what humanity is capable of when we stop asking for permission. The officers nodded. The orders went out, and the galaxy held its breath. For 6 weeks, humanity went silent. No diplomatic messages left Earth. No trade ships crossed into human space. No communications of any kind came from their 12 colony worlds. The borders sealed shut like a door closing in the face of the universe. The galaxy watched, and the galaxy worried. In the halls of the Galactic Concorde, representatives whispered to each other. What were the humans doing? Some thought it was a bluff. Humans were a small species with limited resources. Perhaps they were simply sulking after being ignored. Perhaps they would come back in a few months, apologize for the dramatic exit, and ask for help again. Others were not so sure. The Caliph Dominion, the oldest and most powerful member of the Concorde, sent their best spies to investigate. What they found made no sense. Human shipyards were running at 400% capacity, working around the clock without rest. But the ships being built did not match any known human designs. They were larger, stranger, covered in systems that Caliph intelligence could not identify. What are those weapons? Asked the Caliph intelligence chief, staring at blurry images captured by a probe that had gotten too close to a human shipyard. Unknown, sir, his analyst replied. We have no records of anything like them in our databases. That is impossible. We have records of every weapon system developed by every species in the last 50 million years. Yes, sir. and we have no record of these. The intelligence chief felt a cold sensation in his stomach. It was fear. He had not felt it in centuries. The Thessari communion tried a different approach. The Thessari were psychics. They could read minds across vast distances. Their seers had accurately predicted wars, disasters, and political shifts for millions of years. Surely, they could see what the humans were planning. 12 of their most powerful seers linked their minds together and reached out toward human space. They pushed their consciousness across the light years, searching for human thoughts, human intentions, human plans. What they found was a wall. It was not just a mental shield. It was something far worse. When they touched human minds, they encountered a roaring storm of white noise, determination, and barely contained fury. The emotions were so intense, so overwhelming, that all 12 seers began bleeding from their eyes and ears. 3 of them died instantly. The others fell into comas. The Thessari ambassador reported to the Concord with a trembling voice. Human minds have become unreadable. When we try, we hear only fire and static. And beneath that, a single thought repeating over and over, "They will pay. They will pay." The council chamber went very quiet. Meanwhile, Concord monitoring stations on the edge of human space reported strange readings. Gravitational anomalies were appearing and disappearing, as if something massive was being moved through fold space. But the objects were too large to be ships. At least, too large to be any ships the Concord knew about. "Could these readings be errors?" asked the Secretary General. "No, sir," replied the chief scientist. "The readings are accurate. Something is moving out there. Something very, very big." Fear began to spread through the Concord like a virus. Emergency meetings were called. Military fleets were repositioned. Species that had not spoken to each other in centuries began exchanging nervous messages. But the Vethrani hegemony remained confident. In the throne room of Vethrani Prime, the Emperor laughed when his advisors showed him the reports. The humans had gone silent. They had 12 worlds. His empire had 300. They had a modest fleet. He had thousands of warships. What could they possibly do? "They are throwing a tantrum," he said. "Let them sulk in their little corner of space. When they calm down, they will realize they have no options. Perhaps they will offer us tribute in exchange for peace." Yes, I think I would like that. Human tribute, human slaves, human worlds. His advisors laughed with him, though some of the smarter ones noticed that their instruments kept detecting things they could not explain. The Vethrani continued their raids. They captured another 50,000 humans from the colony of Horizon's Edge. They loaded their prisoners onto slave ships and sent them to market. Business as usual. 3 days after the Horizon's Edge raid, something happened. Every Vethrani communication device activated at once. Every screen on every ship, every world, every outpost in the hegemony displayed the same message. It came in Vethrani language, perfectly translated, delivered by a human voice that was calm and cold. The message contained coordinates, a timestamp, and 8 words. "You took our people. We're taking them back." The Emperor stared at the message. For a moment, something flickered in his eyes. Not quite fear, not yet, but uncertainty. "What is this?" he demanded. "Some kind of joke?" "We do not know, Your Majesty. The coordinates are a point in open space between our territory and theirs. The timestamp is in 4 days. It is a trick. They want us to gather our fleet in one place so they can attack somewhere else." "Perhaps, Your Majesty. What should we do?" The Emperor thought for a moment. His pride won over his caution. "Send the home fleet to those coordinates. Every ship. When the humans arrive, if they arrive, destroy them completely. Let this be the end of their foolish defiance." The orders went out. 800 Vethrani warships began moving toward the coordinates. Across the galaxy, Other species tracked the movement. The Caliph dispatched their entire second fleet to a safe distance from the coordinates, officially to observe. The Thessari began evacuating their nearest systems. The Concorde's Secretary-General requested an emergency session, though no one knew what they would even discuss. Everyone understood that something was about to happen, something that would change everything. On a transport ship full of human prisoners heading to a Vethrani slave market, a young woman named Lisa Chen sat in the darkness of the cargo hold. She had been captured on Horizon's edge. She had been beaten, starved, and treated like an animal. But she had not given up hope. She whispered to the other prisoners around her. "Did you hear? The message? They are coming for us." An older man shook his head. "It's been 6 weeks. Earth has abandoned us." "No," Lisa said. "Earth is coming. The fleet is coming. I know it." "How can you know?" "Because I know my people. We do not leave anyone behind. And when someone hurts us, when they really hurt us, we make them pay." She smiled in the darkness. It was not a kind smile. The Vethrani have no idea what is coming. 4 days remained until the timestamp. The galaxy waited, and in the darkness between stars, humanity's answer was finally ready to arrive. At the exact moment specified in the message, space itself seemed to tear open. The Vethrani home fleet waited at the coordinates, 800 warships in perfect formation. They were confident. They were ready. They had enough firepower to destroy any fleet in the Concorde. Then humanity arrived. It was not a fleet. It was an armada. 1,200 warships dropped out of fold space in a single wave. They appeared in perfect formation, like a wall of metal and death stretching across the void. Many of the ships were designs no one had ever seen before. They were sleek and angular, covered in weapons that pulsed with strange energy. At the center of the formation was a ship that made the Vethrani commanders gasp in disbelief. The UNS Prometheus was a dreadnought 3 kilometers long. It was larger than anything humans were supposed to be able to build. It bristled with so many weapons that the Vethrani sensors could not count them all. "Where did they get that?" whispered the Vethrani admiral in command of the home fleet. He had led 100 battles. He had never felt fear before. He felt it now. "All ships, open fire," he screamed. "Destroy them before they can attack." The Vethrani fleet unleashed everything it had: plasma cannons, missile batteries, energy beams. Thousands of weapons fired at once, filling space with a storm of destruction aimed at the human formation. The human ships did not scatter. They did not retreat. They advanced. Small, fast vessels called Lancers shot forward at speeds that should have been impossible. They wove through the incoming fire like dancers, dodging weapons that should have hit them. They moved faster than the Vethrani targeting systems could track. The Lancers reached the Vethrani formation in seconds. They did not fire conventional weapons. Instead, they released pulses of energy that passed straight through Vethrani shields as if they did not exist. Warships began exploding from the inside, their reactors detonating without any external damage. "Our shields are not working," screamed a Vethrani captain before his ship imploded. Behind the Lancers came the human cruisers. They fired weapons that bent space itself, creating gravity wells that crushed Vethrani ships into twisted metal. Other weapons released clouds of self-guided projectiles that hunted down targets with terrible precision. And through it all, human fighter pilots performed maneuvers that no living being should survive. They flew their craft at angles and speeds that would kill any pilot from any known species. But human pilots were not flying conventionally. They were connected directly to their ships through neural interfaces, their bodies floating in special fluid that protected them from the crushing forces. Their ships were extensions of their bodies. They thought, and their ships obeyed. The Vethrani fighters tried to engage them. It was like trying to catch lightning with bare hands. In 11 minutes, 600 Vethrani ships were destroyed or disabled. The remaining 200 tried to retreat. They did not get far. The Prometheus finally fired its main weapon. A beam of pure energy lanced across space and struck the largest Vethrani moon. The beam punched clean through the moon and emerged from the other side. Debris exploded outward in all directions. The message was clear. If the humans wanted to, they could destroy worlds. This is Admiral Elena Vasquez to all Vethrani vessels. A voice spoke on every frequency. You have 6 hours to surrender unconditionally and return all human prisoners. If you do not, we will proceed to Vethrani Prime and finish what you started. The Vethrani admiral looked at the wreckage of his fleet. He looked at the impossible human armada. He thought about his family on Vethrani Prime. We surrender, he said. The battle had lasted 11 minutes. Across the galaxy, beings watched recordings of the battle in shocked silence. The Caliph observers had captured everything with their sensors. They had expected a fight. They had not expected a massacre. Impossible, said the Caliph fleet commander, reviewing the data. Humans do not have this technology. They cannot have this technology. And yet they do, his advisor replied. The question is, what else do they have? No one had an answer. Within 6 hours, all 847,000 human prisoners were being transferred to human ships. Lisa Chen walked up a ramp onto a human transport, tears streaming down her face. A soldier in human armor gave her a blanket and a cup of warm coffee. Welcome home, the soldier said. You are safe now. Lisa looked back at the Vethrani slave ship she had just left. Vethrani guards stood in lines with their hands raised, guarded by human marines. What will happen to them? She asked. The ones who committed crimes will face trial. The others will be sent home. That is more mercy than they showed us. The soldier nodded. Yes, but we are not them. That is the whole point. On Vethrani Prime, the Emperor watched his empire collapse. His fleet was gone. Human ships now orbited his world. His people were terrified. His advisors had fled. Human marines landed and arrested the entire government. They did it efficiently, professionally, without unnecessary violence. The Emperor was taken to a cell where he would wait for trial. You cannot do this, he protested. I am the Emperor. The Concorde will not allow this. The Marine who escorted him did not even look at him. The Concorde did not stop you from killing our children. We stopped ourselves from killing yours. Be grateful for that. 3 days later, Admiral Vasquez appeared on every communication frequency in the galaxy. She stood on the bridge of the Prometheus, the stars visible behind her. Her uniform was immaculate. Her eyes were tired, but steady. To the Vethrani people, she said, your leaders committed terrible crimes. They will face justice. But we do not blame the innocent for the actions of the guilty. You will be treated fairly. She paused. To the Galactic Concorde, you failed us. When we begged for help, you formed committees. When our children died, you sent diplomatic notes. We no longer expect your protection. We have learned to protect ourselves. Another pause. Her voice became harder. To everyone else, we are not conquerors. We do not want empire. We want to live in peace, explore the stars, and build a future for our children. But understand this clearly. She looked directly into the recording device, as if speaking to every being in the galaxy personally. Humanity protects its own. Threaten our people, our worlds, our families, and we will not ask permission to respond. We will not wait for your committees. We will handle it ourselves. Her eyes seemed to burn with cold fire. And you will not enjoy the experience. The transmission ended. In strategic command centers across the galaxy, Military planners immediately began updating their threat assessments. Species that had dismissed humans as insignificant suddenly rated them as a top-tier military power. Diplomats scrambled to request meetings with human representatives. Intelligence agencies began desperately trying to discover what other secrets humanity might be hiding. The balance of power in the galaxy had shifted in 11 minutes, and everyone knew that nothing would ever be the same again. The recordings of the battle spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Every species, every world, every government watched humanity destroy 800 warships in 11 minutes. They watched the Prometheus punch a hole through a moon. They listened to Admiral Vasquez's warning. And then they began to ask themselves very difficult questions. In the great council chambers of the Caliph Dominion, the Elder Council met in emergency session. These were beings who had lived for tens of thousands of years. They had watched younger species come and go like seasons. They had seen empires rise and fall while they remained constant. They had never seen anything quite like this. "How did we miss this?" demanded Elder Prime Thalox, the oldest and most powerful of the Caliph. "We have monitored every species in this galaxy for 12 million years. We know what everyone is building, what everyone is planning, what everyone is capable of. How did humans build that fleet without us knowing?" His intelligence chief had no good answer. "They must have hidden their shipyards in places we did not think to look. Perhaps in deep space, far from any system. Perhaps in dimensions we cannot detect. We simply do not know." "That is not acceptable." "No, Elder Prime, it is not. But it is the truth." Thalox was silent for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was thoughtful. "What else do we not know about humans?" No one could answer. The Caliph made their decision quickly. They proposed that humanity be elevated to full senior species status immediately. This meant a permanent seat on the Concord Council, full voting rights, and recognition as a major power. Some Caliph objected, saying humans were too young, too dangerous, too unpredictable. Thalox silenced them with a look. "It is better to have them inside the tent than outside it, building weapons we cannot understand. We will make them our partners. It is the only sensible choice." The Thesserai communion took a different approach. They were a deeply spiritual species who believed that the universe had meaning and purpose. The experience of their seers still haunted them. When they had tried to read human minds, they had encountered something that had killed 3 of them and driven the others mad. "Humans are touched by something we do not understand," said the Thesserai high priest. "Their minds burn with a fire that we cannot comprehend. Perhaps they are blessed by forces beyond our knowledge. Perhaps they are cursed. Either way, we must approach them with respect and caution." The Thesserai requested formal non-aggression treaties with humanity. They also began a massive project to study human culture, art, music, and literature. If they could not read human minds, perhaps they could understand human souls through their creations. The merchant guilds, who cared only about profit, saw opportunity. Human technology was suddenly the most valuable commodity in the galaxy. Those weapons that passed through shields, those ships that moved faster than anything else, those neural interfaces that let pilots become one with their craft. Every species wanted access to these innovations. Human trade representatives found themselves surrounded by offers. Massive amounts of credits, rare resources, technology exchanges, political favors. The guilds would pay anything to learn human secrets. Humanity agreed to some trades, but kept their most important technologies secret. This only made them more valuable. The Galactic Concord itself descended into chaos. Many representatives demanded investigations into how humanity had hidden their capabilities. Others argued that the Vethrani had deserved what they got. A few suggested that humanity should be punished for acting outside Concord authority. That suggestion was quickly abandoned. when someone pointed out that punishing humanity would require defeating them in battle first. After watching the recordings, no one volunteered for that task. But it was the Vethrani trials that truly showed the galaxy what kind of species humanity really was. Many expected humanity to simply destroy the Vethrani leadership. They would have had the right. The Vethrani had murdered hundreds of thousands of human civilians. Most species would have responded with total destruction. Humanity chose justice instead. They conducted public trials broadcast across the galaxy. Every piece of evidence was presented openly. The accused were given defense attorneys. Witnesses testified about what they had seen and experienced. The proceedings followed strict legal procedures that humans had developed over thousands of years on Earth. "This is unusual," commented a Caliph observer. "Most species in this situation would simply execute their enemies." "Humans have a saying," replied a human official. "Justice must not only be done, it must be seen to be done. Revenge satisfies anger. Justice satisfies the soul." The trials lasted 3 months. In the end, 17 Vethrani leaders were found guilty of crimes against humanity. They were executed. The rest were either acquitted or given prison sentences based on their level of involvement. The Vethrani emperor was found guilty and executed. His last words were, "I do not understand. Why did you not simply destroy our world? You had the power." Admiral Vasquez, who attended the execution, answered him, "Because that is what you would have done, and we are not you." Humanity had demonstrated overwhelming military power. They had won a battle so completely that it barely qualified as a fight. They could have used that power to take whatever they wanted. Instead, they had chosen mercy and law. This made them more frightening, not less. A classified Caliph military assessment was leaked to several governments. Its conclusions were sobering. Humanity has demonstrated weapons capable of threatening any single power in the Concord. More concerning, they built this arsenal while under constant observation. This suggests technological and organizational capabilities we fundamentally do not understand. Their soldiers fight with unusual aggression and creativity. Their pilots accept damage to their bodies that would kill most species. And their population shows an unusual willingness to sacrifice individual lives for collective goals. The assessment ended with a simple recommendation. Do not provoke. Do not underestimate. Do not assume current human capabilities represent their maximum potential. Humanity is not a junior species. They never were. We simply fail to recognize what they really are. What were they, exactly? The galaxy was still trying to figure that out. On Earth, Admiral Vasquez retired from active service. She had done what she set out to do. The prisoners were home. The guilty were punished. The Vethrani would never threaten humanity again. She spent her final years in a small house by the ocean, watching the waves and thinking about the children of New Carthage. She kept Maria Santos's picture on her desk until the day she died. Humanity had sent a message to the galaxy. They had shown what happened when someone pushed them too far. Now they had to live with the consequences. Everyone was watching. Everyone was calculating. And everyone understood that the rules of the galaxy had changed forever. 2 years had passed since the Battle of Vethrani Prime. On the surface, the galaxy had returned to normal. Trade ships moved between worlds. Diplomats argued in council chambers. Scientists made discoveries. Children were born. Old beings died. The universe continued its endless turning. But nothing was really the same. Humanity had accepted senior species status in the Galactic Concord. They had opened their borders again, resumed trade, and returned to diplomatic engagement. Human ambassadors attended council meetings and participated in debates. They smiled politely and made reasonable arguments. Everyone treated them very, very carefully. The changes were visible everywhere. Human colonies now hosted military observers from dozens of species. But these observers were not there to watch the humans. They were there because their governments felt safer near human military installations. If trouble came, they wanted to be close to the species that had defeated 800 warships in 11 minutes. The Concorde itself had transformed. When the Vethrani were raiding human colonies, it had taken 18 months of committees and debates to produce nothing useful. Now, when any member species requested aid against a threat, response times were measured in days, sometimes hours. No one wanted to see another species walk out of the council chamber saying, "Fine, I will handle it." A new phrase entered galactic diplomatic vocabulary. Don't make them handle it. Representatives used it to end arguments, break deadlocks, and force compromises. Everyone understood what it meant. Everyone remembered what happened when humanity stopped asking and started acting. Every major power had run military simulations since the battle. The results were consistent and terrifying. In a direct conflict with humanity, projected casualties were catastrophic for both sides. Humans would suffer losses, but so would their enemies. And humans fought in ways that computers could not predict. They adapted mid-battle, changing tactics faster than other species could respond. Their pilots flew maneuvers that should have been suicidal, but somehow survived. Their soldiers made sacrifices that seemed illogical, until suddenly the objective was achieved. And then there was the question everyone kept asking. What else did humanity have? The weapons that passed through shields, the ships that bent gravity, the neural interfaces that let pilots become one with their machines. These had appeared from nowhere. What other secrets were hiding in human laboratories and shipyards? No one knew, and that uncertainty was perhaps the most powerful weapon of all. Ambassador David Chen was humanity's new representative to the Concorde Council. He was a calm, thoughtful man in his 60s, with gray hair and kind eyes. He did not look like someone who represented the most dangerous species in the galaxy, but looks could be deceiving. One evening, Elder Prime Thalox of the Caliph Dominion invited Chen for a private conversation. They met in a small room overlooking the lights of the Concorde capital city. Two beings from very different species, trying to understand each other. Thalox studied the human for a long moment. Your species has changed everything, you know this. Chen nodded. We did not want to. We asked for help. Yes, and when it did not come, you handled it. Thalox made a gesture that might have been a smile. Tell me truthfully, Ambassador, do you have more weapons we do not know about? Chen met his gaze steadily. Elder Prime, with respect, would you believe me if I said no? A long silence filled the room. I would not. Then let me offer you something better than an answer. Chen leaned forward in his chair. We do not want to use those weapons. We want to raise our children, build our cities, explore the stars, and maybe, eventually, understand why the universe made us the way we are. We are not your enemy unless you make us one. But if someone makes you one? Chen's expression did not change, but something in his eyes shifted, something cold and hard. Then I hope you are not standing nearby. Thalox was quiet for a moment. Then he made the Caliph sound of acknowledgement. I believe you are being honest with me, Ambassador. That is refreshing. We have no reason to lie to you. We want peace. We want cooperation. We want to be part of this Concorde and help build something better than what exists now. But on your terms. On fair terms. We will not be ignored again. We will not watch our people suffer while others debate procedure. If that makes us difficult partners, then so be it. Thalox considered this. You know, my species has existed for 12 million years. We have seen many younger species rise. Most of them eventually fade or destroy themselves. Very few become truly important. And what do you think about humanity? I think you are unlike anything we have encountered before. Your bodies are fragile, but your spirits are not. Your lives are short, but you burn so brightly during them. You feel everything so intensely: love, hate, joy, rage. Other species feel these things, but not like you do. Chen smiled slightly. Some would say that makes us unstable. Some would. I think it makes you powerful and dangerous, but perhaps also wonderful. Phelox made another gesture. I look forward to seeing what your species becomes, Ambassador. I suspect it will be remarkable. For better or worse, that depends on you. 50 years later, humanity led the coalition that reformed the Galactic Concord into something that actually worked. A true alliance that responded to threats quickly, protected vulnerable species effectively, and held aggressors accountable without endless debate. Historians called it the Human Reformation. The galaxy was not perfect. It never would be. Species still competed and argued, and sometimes fought. But the worst abuses became rare. When someone threatened the innocent, help came quickly. The strong could no longer prey on the weak without consequences. And in military academies across the galaxy, instructors still taught the Battle of Vethrani Prime. They showed recordings of human ships moving faster than anything should move. They analyzed weapons that should not exist. They studied tactics that made no logical sense, until suddenly they did. And they always ended the lesson the same way. When humanity says, "Fine, I will handle it," every major galactic force goes on maximum alert, because those are the last words you will hear before the universe changes. In a small house by the ocean on Earth, there was a photograph of a young girl with dark hair and a bright smile. She had wanted to be a pilot when she grew up. She never got the chance. But because of her and the 400,000 others who died on New Carthage, humanity had risen. They had shown the galaxy what they were capable of. They had made sure no one would ever ignore human suffering again. Maria Santos never flew among the stars, but in a way, she flew in every human heart that reached for the sky and refused to accept that some things were impossible. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Humanity would never forget. And the stars themselves seemed to shine a little brighter, as if they too understood that something important had changed forever.